discussion. First thing is roll call.
Roll call. Dan Cassette. Bob Zurich. Bob Kleppel.
Here.
Kevin Creedy.
Here.
Dwayne Reed. Jeff Packey.
Here.
Tessie Steffens.
Here.
Sparky Stuckenschneider.
Here.
Debbie Todebush. Dave Waymeyer. Betty Werner.
Here.
Gavin Woolley.
Here.
Pledge of allegiance. Approval of the minutes from April the 7th meeting.
Motion.
I have a motion by Betty
A second.
and second by Tessie. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The Parks report.
Parks report. Things are moving along very fast and very well at the pool. Tomorrow we'll be putting down sod. There'll be several days of sod installation. So, but it'll be all hands on deck, and you'll see. We'll talk in a little bit. There'll be a ribbon cutting, and you all will be getting invitations in the mail. As far as other things going on in the park, I attended back in April the Parks and Rec Association State Conference, and while at that conference, I had made at least one contact with a company that does park and city master plans, and so I'm looking, Darren had asked Sal and I to look into getting some pricing on what it would cost to do a city comprehensive plan and a park master plan for the next, and have it ready and in order to determine projects for the next half-cent sales tax fund that will be coming up in a number of years. So working on getting pricing for that. Back in April, I can't remember what day, Craig's Tree Service donated a tree to replace the tree that got cut at Burger Park there along International. And that tree was planted by the pavilion at Optimus. So it's another redbud tree. Looked very nice when we planted it. I haven't been over there since, but we're going to let that tree along International go for a little bit and see if it comes out. Urban Forestry wanted to see if they could make a go with that tree. So I told them I'm willing to give it a try and see what happens. So far, I don't see much going on with that tree yet, so, but we'll see. As far as the illegal tree removal on the riverfront, it's not a whole lot of update. Everything's being handled by the courts and lawyers and all that good stuff. So things are, I guess, progressing as far as I know. And we'll see. I would think in the next couple months, it's not going to be a quick process, I don't think. Usually most of the things with court cases aren't. So, but I'll keep you informed what goes on there. Trying to think what else. A couple of things I sent out over email recently, the half-cent sales tax signs. So you'll see those at various park projects. A couple of them at the pool, one at the main park playground, and then any future park improvement projects, just to kind of get the word out to the public that, hey, your tax dollars are helping pay for this improvement. So, let's see. I think that's really it as far as park report goes. Just it's been all things pool related, you name it: concession stand, staffing, punch lists, sod, shelters. I guess one thing that did develop here recently, I had a call from Rotary. In the design of the pool, we added two basically sleeves in the pool deck, and they'll be flush with the pool deck, so they won't be tripping hazards. But we have two, if you can kind of picture the rendering in your head, two mushroom-looking umbrellas, or one mushroom-looking umbrella out there. That's a shade structure. And we put in the infrastructure, the sleeve, and the concrete deck out there, and two other spots for future umbrellas. And the Rotary contacted me recently and asked, they were inquiring on costs and stuff like that. And so I hadn't got to that point yet in looking up the costs from the umbrella company because the one umbrella we're getting with the project was obviously included in the project. So I'm working with Rotary, got them the information they needed, showed them where the sites were, the sleeves are in the concrete out there, and I'm assuming I'll hear back from them sometime here in the near future. So, like I said, things are moving along at the pool, and it's all hands on deck at this point.
Questions? Comments?
Sure. Is it going to be finished on time?
It will be.
Good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, everything's on time, in order, and there hasn't been any hiccups. The deck's been fully poured, I believe, now, and there's water in the pool. The pumps have been running, so finishing up the final touches and final installs and stuff like that.
Regarding the tree that was cut down, I'm assuming we have no idea who did it?
No,
None whatsoever?
nothing, no leads, nothing.
Nothing?
Very strange.
And I have a question. Was the trail, before we redid the trail, was it striped? The
It
center-
was striped, yes.
Are we, any thoughts about doing that to the trail?
We talked internally, staff did, Public Works, because Public Works was usually the ones that helped us get it striped because they had the machine. And if you recall, we could never quite get that stripe to match up in the same pattern as it was in prior. And so when we were building the trail last fall, I talked with John from Public Works, John Nilgis, and we decided, because it's one of those maintenance items that has to be done every so often, and then just like what I was describing to you is we can never seem to get our stripe in the exact same place it was before. And it kind of, over the years, when the old trail was in, it just kind of looked bad. It wasn't a requirement. I think it was a requirement when that trail was put in because it was put in with a MoDOT grant. And we believe that might have been one of the requirements, is that it had to be striped. And long story short, the thought process was that the city was hoping to not put the stripe in to reduce maintenance down there in the future.
Okay, all right. Makes sense to me. Any other questions?
People walk in groups anyway. Nobody's going to listen to your stripe.
And that is what you see. You do see trails that do have stripes on them for whatever reason. You see some that have dash marks, like the highway dash marks, and you see a lot of them that don't have marks.
You see some that have stripes just in certain areas.
Yeah.
That, like when you're starting out, and then that's it. They don't go any further. Okay, old business, I think you've...
Old business, we talked about the pool and illegal tree removal. Sports tournament pricing, we just met with Washington Youth Sports Association right before this meeting. I normally have a preseason meeting with them, with all the baseball groups and, I guess really all the sports groups, soccer and football and baseball, softball. And we realized we hadn't, I sent them the tournament information. So last month we were here with the tournament information. We were ready to go to city council with the tournament information. I was talking to Darren about some things. He was looking over what you guys recommended. He had some questions. He posed some questions to me. And I said, well, you think it would be a good idea to have the organizations look at this before we just pass it through city council in case they had questions, and we both determined that it was probably, in the long run, would probably save me a lot of time if we did that. So I sent it out to Legion, I sent it out to Washington Youth Sports, I sent it out to Soccer Association and football, and then didn't hear anything, and then followed up with an email asking, hey, I kind of told them I wanted to get their input, and so I've had a few email conversations from different groups, and we met with Washington Youth Sports just recently because we hadn't had their preseason meeting yet, and we had a couple other things we needed to discuss anyways. So I don't know where it's going to go. I found out real quick. I don't know if you all saw the article in the paper today about Union's baseball complex that they have over there, and so just like us last year, they were inundated with tournaments and teams from St. Louis also. Only difference is they have kind of more of a complex or more of a tournament complex. They just don't have the staff to run it. With that said, I read the article. It doesn't look like my son plays competitive baseball now. This is his first year. I've played in Arnold twice now, I think, and we're going to Branson this weekend. Doesn't look like the St. Louis teams are coming out here this year because they're all able to play in St. Louis County or wherever they're able to play. And I was telling Chris Haney from Washington Youth Sports, those fees were not really meant for the local organizations or to put any burden on the local organizations. It's mainly to have a fee structure in place in case the pandemic happens again, or if those teams were coming out here this year because of the pandemic. Looks like they're not. I don't really know where we go with this. I know Legion has some concerns, probably more than what Washington Youth Sports had. Legion's a different animal because they do a lot of their work themselves. I think Washington Youth Sports, they would like to get to that point too. They used to do the ball field dragging and field maintenance in-house prior to myself coming here, I guess, a couple of years ago. There's discussions if they did that, then maybe it's just last year was a lot of burden on my staff. Like we had to drop a lot of what we were doing. Everyone thinks because the fair wasn't going on and baseball was canceled that we didn't have necessarily a whole lot of things going on, but we were demoing the pool building and none of our projects stopped. So this was really to have reasonable fees in place for these St. Louis teams coming out here. With that said, it doesn't look like they're coming out here. I don't know where we go with the fees. Like it hasn't gone to city council, so nothing's been approved yet, which is good. But maybe we revisit these fees based on local organizations using the fields. I don't know what your guys' thoughts on that. But I told, Chris got really excited and he's like, and just so we're all on the same page here, and I've had a couple meetings with Washington Youth Sports, one meeting last year about this time during the pandemic when everything was closed down. And, Lakeview fields are pretty dated. They're getting pretty old. And the Youth Association out there would like to see some new fields in the near future. And so I said, Chris, why don't you come up with a plan? And I know there's been different plans and different renderings over the years, but I said, if you really feel this adamant about it, why don't you come up with a plan, a real rendering, sit down with the city, myself, park board, whoever it may be, we'll look at this. I said, maybe this can be put on the next half-cent sales tax initiative, because it would take them that long just to get things in place. I said, if you really want to be taken serious, come to the city with some funds in hand and a plan. And I said, I think that'll bode well for you. And so he really liked that idea, and they ever since that meeting about a year ago, they've been doing a number of things. The biggest thing that comes to my head is they worked some of these tournaments that were held at Lakeview. They sold concessions at the tournaments, and they made money off that, and they're basically putting money in a pot for future use later on possibly some renovations to Lakeview Sports Complex. And so in this discussion I had a while ago is they would like to see some infrastructure during that, if that happens, if the city agrees to that, enhancement at Lakeview, that maybe a shed's put in out there because they don't have anywhere to store equipment, like not field like dragging equipment and things like that. And maybe they get to the point where they're like the Legion, where they kind of do some of their own work on the field for tournaments or what have you. And I thought that was a good idea. So they're looking into things like that. So maybe these tournament things, these fees and stuff, it's a number of years away, but that could all change too if they're doing a lot of the work in the house and takes a little bit of pressure off us. If we get the fields ready on Friday, line them, drag them, get them ready, and hand them over to them and say, here's the fields, go with it for this weekend. You drag them if they need to be drugged, you line them if they need to be drugged. That takes pressure off of us. Maybe the city still gets, we would obviously get field rental fees from that, but maybe there is a tournament fee that would fit our local organizations better. I don't know. Thoughts, questions, concerns?
When you say redoing the fields, just blow them up and start over?
That's what they'd like to do. And I said, well, if you want to do that, come to the city with a plan. Come to me with a plan. Let's sit down and look at it. And then we can come to you guys and come up with a plan. And then if we all agree, if people start thinking that this is a reasonable project, then maybe it can be presented in the next half-cent sales tax.
Just thinking out loud, the lighting kind of sets, the location of the fields.
Right.
Would they, be redoing the entire complex, lighting, et cetera?
Well, I think that's their plan. Basically what you started off with, blow it up and start over, that's kind of what they're thinking. Now, they're not going to have the funds for that. They're going to have a lot of it. So it'd be, and correct me if I'm wrong, Darren and I kind of discussed this, that he thought basically what I told him, what I just described to you, how to come to the city and maybe have some funds in hand, things like that, he thought that was the correct way to approach the project.
That's always the best way, is to go ahead and have at least some seed money and then indicate, it's just like all the other projects. When we had the capital improvement sales tax, we had 30-some million projects worth of projects, and we had to reduce it down to 16.2 million. So,
What I told Chris a while ago, and a lot of it comes from the article in the paper, is I don't want to get into the situation that Union's in. We don't want to build just a baseball tournament complex, because Union has less staff than I do, and we're not set up to run tournaments every weekend. They're definitely not set up to run tournaments every weekend. I'd hate to have that expectation. I don't want to sell that theory or that project to council or to park board or whoever and try to get this project run through as, we're going to be a tournament complex, when we don't have the manpower to do that or the equipment. And we're just not. A lot of Parks and Rec, you have to go in, like Bridgeton, BMAC, you have to go in, that's ran by a city, but you have to go into that really having the infrastructure, the equipment, the manpower, the funding to have the field products and all that stuff, and we're just not set up for that. And I don't want to sell that to the public. I don't want to sell it to the park board. I don't want to sell it to council. So I told Chris, I was like, there'll have to be a lot of discussions and how this is laid out, and that it functions for Little League. It works well for Little League. It's going to work well for the city, and that it's not billed as something and sold to the public that it's going to be one thing, but then when it's built and after it's done and everyone leaves, it's really something totally different. I don't want that.
What I gathered also from that article is that Union was not getting any teams to come out, so they are canceling them. And the teams were concerned about rainouts and, people not getting their money back for their hotels or whatever if there was a rainout. So they were more or less pushing for artificial turf fields that basically you wouldn't have a rain out. The rain happens, and what they say in there, 2 hours later you can play on the field. If it rains hard on a dirt field, it's canceled. So I thought that's what they were doing. That was kind of the parks director trying to push for some artificial turf down the future. And I like the idea of the baseball group coming to the park board with a plan.
Yeah.
Put together a plan and tell us what you need, where's the land going to come from? Let them tell us.
Yeah. And so Lakeview, when I met with Chris, Chad and I met with Chris Hani out there last year about this time, and it's, you know, with the rocks and the hill and everything, you know, it's just it's not a great setup, and we have erosion problems, and, you know, there's a lot of things wrong, and, yeah, and it's dated, and we did some painting out there this spring to spruce some things up. It still is what it is, and, you know, I don't know, I think it's a worthy project. It's probably, definitely time to look at it anyways and see what we can do, if we can do anything.
Is there room for additional fields?
I don't know. All depends on like what size and what, you know, what age groups are
That's what
looking
I was
to
thinking. If you
play.
got T-ball fields, you can probably fit 4 T-ball fields in one of those full-size baseball fields.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you could have them
Kind of like the soccer situation, right?
playing in each corner and, yeah.
How old are those, I'm sorry,
Go ahead, Betty.
how old are those fields, that Lakeview that you're talking
The
about?
Lakeview Fields?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I want to say they were
20.
early 90s?
Yeah,
Okay, I would,
You're
at least 20. I mean, it's.
you're
Yeah,
right.
I
They're-
think
was
early
gonna say they're
90s, too.
Close to 20.
I think there was some negotiations.
That's closer to 30.
There were
Yeah.
some negotiations on the land in the mid to late 80s or whatever, but I don't think those fields opened up to early 90s or something.
I'm pretty sure the Jerry Jasper sign says 19.
90,
Yeah.
91,
or 4, it might say 4, 94.
I was
But-
thinking, yeah.
anyway.
But it doesn't.
Somewhere,
they're-
yeah, early
they've been
90s.
there-
matter how old they are.
Well, can,
I think a lot can be done, and to Gavin's point,
don't.
the lights do dictate where the fields are gonna go. You can spend a lot of money moving everything. But, you know, with new fencing, some new grading, possible retaining wall.
Yeah.
You know, help some of the erosion out. You could make it a new place on the same footprint, you know? And, you know, again, that's another whole discussion for a different meeting,
Yeah.
but I think there's potential for that. When we added amenities to make the fields drain better, we actually put the dirt 18 inches, almost 2 feet up on the fence.
Yeah.
You know, so those kind of things need to be redone in, you know, even the walkways, you know, new concrete, things like that. But the footprint, I think, would need to stay there. You know what I mean? We can't reinvent and tear the lights out and start there. You know, you can do it 2 or 3 times a year and probably get away with, you know, doing a little bit. But you're not gonna get, you know, those teams to come out here in a weekend, every single weekend. Like Wayne said, nor do we want that. So,
You almost need that backbone of 3 or 4 competitive teams in an area to.
correct.
They're the ones who
Just-
draw those teams out.
Right, and if the Washington Little League is truly, you know, looking to get to that, you know, in the years past, you know, when I was a kid, they had competitive league in here, and they played different teams, and the competitive, you didn't go to St. Louis, you stayed around here. Now, is that a thing of the past? Is that something that can come back? Maybe so, but that's something that the Little League's gonna have to diversify too, instead of losing all those 200 kids that play select baseball in St. Louis County. If you can keep them here, now you can bring your tournaments here, you know, at least have those teams to play. Until that happens, building a field's not gonna bring tournaments here every single weekend.
well, if we're talking about fees, and I agree with everything you just said, but it seemed like we were kind of rushed because we were concerned that we would have these tournaments this summer, and we were losing money, and we weren't being compensated correctly or whatever. Why not, what we've got in place, it just stays in place this summer. You bring the team, you bring your groups in, maybe the fee committee sits back down, and we look at it again with, if we've gotten now input from them, and Darren had some questions, and there was, you know, I think Sully had some questions about a month ago. He called me on a couple things. You know what I mean? And we sit down and we get it, and we don't rush. I mean, and we set it up that maybe so by next summer, we've got it, and the teams are all notified, or the organizations all know, we've all had time. I mean, you know, we were kind of rushing this because we were concerned that we were gonna get bombarded this summer. It is what it is. What we've got in place is what we've got for this summer, and we can work on it and make sure that everybody's questions are answered, and we do it logically. Bring, like you said, bring in the organization.
Each organization's different, like Bob brought up at last meeting. That's when it kind of struck me, is that, you know, and Kent does a lot of work up there, so, I mean, how can I can't justify him charging him, you know, what's on this paper when he does 75% of the work sometimes. It just depends on what tournament it is and how much.
Well, and
it has stuff like
we need
that.
to figure that out. We need to.
But then
sit-
Hani's tournaments are a little bit different, and it's like, where do you know?
Yeah, well, that would be my recommendation, that we bring the fees, we have a fees committee, we worked on fees. And when we did all that, we brought the organizations in and talked to them, you know what I mean, and stuff. So you do the same thing with your tournaments. This is what we're thinking, get their input too, then you reevaluate what you've done. You've got input from the organizations and everybody else, and then you bring it forward.
Is there anything that needs to be changed for this year that we have currently set in place? Is that a concern of yours, Wayne?
No, not now, especially now that, after reading that article in the paper, I mean, now I know more too, because my son's playing competitive, this is his first year, and, you know, yeah, I mean, everything, as far as baseball goes, everything seems like it's back to normal. You might have to wear a mask at some places, but everyone's opened up, and no one's coming
Yeah.
out here. We're not getting any calls, you know, or anything like that, like.
The only reason we got calls is because things were closed
Yeah.
out in St.
In
Louis.
St.
last-
Louis.
And what we talked about a while ago was too, and it was all last minute too, so these tournament teams were hanging on, say, maybe they're supposed to have a tournament at BMAC, and depending on what the county commissioner was doing, you know, or he or she or whatever was changing rules every week, and they were hanging on as long as they could, and then when finally the city would tell them, or whatever organization told them, no, you can't have your tournament here, then they were coming to us with 7 days to try to figure it out, and we were scrambling, they were scrambling, it was just a mess.
Well, and that happens in St. Louis tournaments all the time. There's places that you're at Woodlands, you're at Weed Hop, you're at somewhere else, and depending on the number of teams, they'll put one age group somewhere else, and you don't know that until Wednesday or Thursday, and you're playing there on Saturday.
Yeah.
And I know we ran into that because the guy called me last year, you know, hey, if I get enough teams, can we come out here and use 2 fields or use 4 fields? You know, just, I mean, in 2 or 3 days notice.
Yeah.
You know, so, and again, we're just not set up for that, and I don't think it's gonna happen, so.
And if we get a call, we could say we're not set up for that. I mean, you
Right.
don't want to, but why, you know, we aren't set up for some of the stuff that they're asking, and we're trying to get set up for future, you know what I mean? So,
I just think in the future, we need to keep in mind that anyone who calls and wants to run a tournament are there to make money.
exactly.
And we as a city should make money when they rent the fields. The Washington Little League, the Legion, I mean, even our local high schools for that matter, as far as I'm concerned, we can break even or get a little closer there, a lot different than we can. You know, I think we should charge anybody incoming. There definitely should be a difference there, no doubt. I think when I looked at it, like, someone was gonna rent the field out for a tournament, and it was actually $5 cheaper than it was for the Legion, and, you know, for lights. You know what I mean? And it's just like, those things, we've gotta narrow down when we
Yeah.
look into it, that the local people, I don't think that they're getting a deal every single time, but if they're, a tournament needs to be charged for, and, right?
But we need to have a plan.
Correct.
That's all we need. And you basically have put one together.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, so we can, over the next year, we can get the fees committee
Yeah.
together,
Yep.
kind of look at it and get
You
everything
think
set
you're
in
good for
place.
this summer?
Yeah.
Yeah,
We are right
yeah, I
now.
mean, I don't think we're gonna get any calls, you know, and I think we should be fine.
but if we do, we have a plan.
Yeah,
We have a fee structure set up.
well, it hasn't been approved by council, so.
No,
we
no,
couldn't-
I know, but
We have the
Yeah.
old structure set up,
Yeah.
whatever that,
Yeah, well, the old structure was me and Darren.
whatever
coming up with-
that, wouldn't even call it a structure.
But
Yeah,
I would think we should proceed with getting, you know, the plan, the one that you want to put together, or have put together, get that approved by council.
yeah, we'll,
Get it in place.
well, we'll need to sit down and
Right.
discuss how we're gonna, what we're gonna do with these local you know, the
Right.
local organizations,
Yeah.
and come up with a fee and then take it to
Yeah.
council.
Right.
So, okay.
Very good. New business?
New business, this is gonna be hard without a,
Well, you can just explain it to him, or we can send it out to him. I apologize, I can't get that to work. I don't know what
so.
disconnection happened.
The pavilions, lake pavilions, I took it to council, last council meeting, and the pavilions were approved and the electric was approved for the pavilions. So that'd be electric at 2 pavilions. That was 3 total pavilions, all metal roof, very low maintenance, which is great. The rock columns, if you recall, that we had on them, the council wanted me to look into I guess, maybe more affordable option. They talked about stamped concrete, instead of the natural rock around the columns. And so I've been working on that. I went to the pavilion, the low bidder for the rock columns was also the pavilion, and the company that we're getting the pavilion from, but he was gonna use a subcontractor out of St. Louis. They don't really specialize in rock columns, pavilions. He was just gonna get a contractor out of St. Louis to do it. So council wanted me to look into like a stamped concrete type thing, and so I went to the pavilion provider. He couldn't really get me any information. We reached out to a local company here, Chad did. I haven't gotten a call back. I talked to Packy Restoration today. He gave me some options to look at. Kind of the one thing he thought would be a little more affordable would be like there's a specific name for it, and I can't recall what it is right now. But basically, it's like man-made stone, and he said a company out of Union makes it, B&M Stone, I think, is what it is. And it's the same color all the way through. So I'm looking into that. And I'll have to go back to council and let them know what I found, and then we can kind of proceed from there. I know the council members thought that having something on those pillars was a good idea, just not necessarily natural stone.
What was the cost of the stone?
33,000?
Yeah, 33.
33.
33,000 for how many?
22 pillars.
Yeah, I didn't-
Yeah,
I'm sorry?
33,000 for
33.
22 pillars.
pillars.
Okay, so for all of them.
For all of them.
What about any of the organizations interested in footing the
I
bill?
haven't reached out to them. We had to get, council approved the pavilions and electric because we found out, and I don't know if I knew this when we had our meeting or not, but there's a 20-week lead time on the pavilions, on the
Yeah.
steel.
Okay.
So this will be after the fair project
Okay.
instead of this summer. But, and then the electric was higher too because of metal costs, higher than what we thought it would be. But we wanted to get all that locked into place. With that said,
The
can't lock
stonework could be
pavilions
added
into
later,
place
can't it?
until we pick out a color.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but stonework could be added later, at a later
No.
date.
Yes,
Oh,
yeah, we don't have to, we can proceed without the stonework,
Because you can have you can have the structures up
up and then.
and not have anything, you don't have to have anything
Right.
around those pillars.
Right.
What we wanted to do, I think at the council meeting, was move forward with the contract so you don't lose your, you know,
Pricing.
your-
Place in
your
line.
pricing that you've got now.
I'm sorry.
And then we can always do a change order and say, we want to change this or we want to reduce this. That's what we did.
so the columns in essence are decorative rather than structural?
No, the columns are structural for the pavilion. We
The
were wanting
steel,
to add
the-
this as a decorative feature. dress
Right,
up.
the stone or concrete or whatever is added, is just a surround
Yes.
after
Yeah,
the
but
fact.
I asked a question at the council meeting for that if we left just metal poles, you know, it would look a little plain, and then we could come up with the funding later.
Yeah.
And a couple councilmen, I know Selenchuk kind of told me, you know, you start backing the trailer there, like during the fair or something
Yeah.
like that, and you end up hitting the metal post, then you're gonna have, you know, if they hit the
Pavilions
stone
down.
pillars, it's gonna hurt their car or the trailer, not our stone pillars. So it adds to protecting that.
Right,
And rather than, you know, we could probably build them without it, but we want to put them in there, not wait 5 years to put them around there. It's kind of the.
You want to put some kind of pillars in there, then you prefer that it's what, instead of 33,000,
Well-
20,000?
And maybe it'll be 33,000, we don't know, but we're
Yeah,
just
we
gonna
don't
look at
know.
different options.
It could be, I think that one of the, Hydrich, I think, was looking at the fact of adding on and getting electric for the third pavilion.
Right.
If we could reduce the price of the stone that's around the pillars. So that would be, because we have a separate contract that we approved that night for the electrical work. But that only had electric provided for 2 of the pavilions along Lake Shore. The one on Grand would not. So the idea was, let's see if we can go ahead, they felt it was more important to get the electric on all of them, and then see if you could get a deduct on the stone that goes around the pillars.
The consensus was the cost of putting electric to that other, even running the conduit there and everything else, is not gonna get any cheaper.
Might as well do it.
No.
If we have a contractor there who's gonna do it, we can do a change order, have them add to that pavilion, and then we would try.
So we got time yet because we still got, we approved both the contracts. We're moving forward. We can still make these changes so he can still come back.
I think the stone, the pictures that I've seen really dresses it up. And that's similar to what they have at Shaw's Nature in their
Yeah.
pavilion. It's the same thing. And it really looks nice, in addition to some protection.
You know, as far as protection is concerned, concrete would be a lot stronger than laid stone. Am I not correct, Kevin?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if somebody backs into the stone column's gonna.
Right, you see mailbox columns completely destroyed all the
But
time.
they can put that back together, right? I mean,
Correct. I don't see forming concrete around them poles and pouring it full of concrete.
if I was gonna pour concrete, I'd pour a column base and then shorten the posts up and
Yeah.
stick the posts on top.
Yeah, there could be issues too with expansion. Those poles have to have room to expand with the concrete, so I don't know how that would work too, but
Yeah.
find out. But,
Work in progress.
yeah. So I just wanted to give you an update. So the pavilions are going, the 3 pavilions in electric, that's all moving forward. It's just the columns I'm still trying to figure out, so more to come on that.
With an anticipated completion of this calendar year?
20 weeks.
Hopefully. I mean,
Yeah, I
the
would
plan would be to start after the fair, like mid-August. Once we get everything cleaned up from the fair, then start on that project.
Oh, then that's a possibility.
So,
Whether-
and we're doing all the demo and, you know, like we talked last time, the concrete pads and all that stuff in-house, so.
I mean, $33,000 is a good chunk of change, but those things are gonna be out there for 75 years. I mean,
Yeah.
they're gonna
Yeah.
last.
Yeah, because it's
Forever.
all steel, you know, it's gonna be there for a long time.
The conversation was just in order to stay in budget and get the electric to the other one, that kind of thing, look at it. You may come back and say, this is our best bet, and we gotta go with it.
And I did ask the electric company, or the electrician, and he said they wouldn't guarantee the price. You know, if we wanted to do a change order later and say, oh yeah, we want, by the way, we want to add it now, will you honor the price? And he said, no, with the market the way it is, he wouldn't do that, so.
So we may have to make a decision to go ahead and just do that anyway and just get that third one and then
Yep.
see what we can do about the pillars. Because will he honor that now? Like if we tell him now that we want that third one added?
I'll have to see.
We'll have to check that.
I didn't ask
Okay.
about now.
I mean, I'm just saying, if we make that commitment now and tell him we want that third one, we need to find out what the price will be.
Yeah, I'll have to find out.
Because I think the council was going under the assumption it was an additional 12 grand or something.
Yeah, we have that, yeah, it was like 11.7, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Serves right.
Okay. Okay.
I guess the next thing on
Yes.
the agenda is the aquatic complex ribbon cutting on the,
Yes, the ribbon cutting. So you'll be getting in the next couple days a nice little invitation like this in the mail. And so we're planning on having a ribbon cutting. This would be before the pool opens. So the pool opens on Saturday, the 29th at noon. We're going to have a ribbon cutting at the pool, 5 PM on May 26th. And we'll have like all you, council, a lot of the contractors, some of the important people from the contractors, city council, half-cent sales tax committee,
Pool committee.
pool
Pool
committee, yeah,
There's
Clark's
some
facility committee.
crossover
Right,
with
right,
those.
right.
My Parks and Rec staff, council, so it'll be a nice event. We're gonna have food and drinks.
Sponsored by Cochran?
Cochran,
Oh, that's nice.
a couple giveaways, you know, kind of a take-home type thing. So, should be real nice. We'll give tours, hopefully have some music going on in the background. No swimming, but you'll at least be able to go in the building and walk around and ask any
that
questions.
mean I can't wear my suit?
You can bring it, you're just not supposed to get in the water.
We want to see you in your thong.
Yeah. I don't know about that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that, and you'll see, each day it seems to be changing a little more out there, a little more color gets added.
Good.
I didn't make it out there today because my day was full of meetings, but, looks like they got some of those shade structures up along the South Hill, so that's,
Oh, that's good.
I think they're like red and blue, every other one's like red and blue, so
Did
some
they
more
put water
color.
in?
Water's
Water's
been
in,
for a
pumps
couple
have
weeks.
been on,
Okay,
so sign is up on the
Is the
front.
water level being maintained?
No leaks?
Yeah, they're,
No leaks.
they're monitoring it, so no leaks that we know of. so-
No leaks that we know of,
No
that
leaks.
that they're not admitting?
Yeah,
Okay, okay,
but yeah, it's moving along. Be here before we know it.
okay. Good, good. All right, small playground at the main park?
So, a while ago, I don't know how many weeks ago that was, I sent out an email that Darren had typed up and asked me to forward to you all about the capital improvement sales tax.
You have those handouts?
And yes,
You
I
want
think we got them.
I'll pass them out.
I think they got
I
them.
think
We got them.
We got them, yeah.
everyone got one but you.
I read it.
And so there's been a city council meeting, I guess, some questions on when that Phoenix Park playground was going to be built. And we told the council members that we're going to have cent sales tax for 2026, I believe it is. And so, I don't know, you want to take it from there? I guess
Yeah,
it's
that's fine.
questions if it could get bumped up sooner.
Yeah, I mean, so, you know, just so everybody knows, when we laid out all of the projects that were to be funded with the capital improvement sales tax in this next 8-year cycle, Mary Sprung and I had to sit down and kind of figure out, you know, which one. Obviously, when we're taking the approach of just pay as you go, we had to figure out, okay, we're gonna have to build up enough revenue from it to go ahead and do the pool. We knew we had to do the pool within a few years because pumps were gonna go bad, and we didn't want, have a summer without, little did we know at the time about COVID, but I mean, that was the game plan. So we had that budgeted for this year, for the majority of that in '21, but we had to lay out the rest of the projects that were through there, and so this is just how we laid them out. Somebody's got to be in year 24, 25, and 26, so there's some projects that you just got to go ahead and do it that way. There has been some discussion at the city council especially from Councilman Heidrich about trying to get that, wanting to get that bumped up. He seems to ask that question, when's it going to be built? But every year we present the same budget to him, and it's in the budget book, but that's okay. So the idea was, if you want to, I gave you some options of what you could go ahead and do to go ahead and get that. There are, I think what I tried to lay out for you is the fact we got $250,000 budgeted for that playground, and again, in '26. But obviously, we're moving forward with the Lions Lake Pavilion replacements, but that we just discussed, but you also have two other things of renovation of the old pool building for admin offices. That's a budgeted item. And then we also have the parks maintenance shed remodel. Both of those, I think, were supposed to be for the 21-22 budget. Now, obviously, those do not have a direct benefit to the general public, but if I was going to go ahead and pick one and be an advocate to keep one in there, I would sit there and say probably renovation, move the pool's office out there, because you got the pool out there, you want the staff out there to go ahead and be that much closer to everything. If we could, obviously, the maintenance shed remodel, we could push that back out. I don't have no problem with that. So that could be moved back to, we can move that to 2026, as far as I'm concerned. I don't know what, the demands are. Obviously, the idea behind that was to put some type of roof structure out there for equipment so that it doesn't sit there and sit out in the elements and, for some of our stuff. And I know that we've cleaned up some of the items out there, but we probably got some more work that we could clean up some more stuff. But the idea is to put that up so that you've got some kind of structure out there, but that could be pushed down the road. So the other thing that we threw out was the idea that if you wanted to, we had talked, and I don't know how much, like I said, 250,000 is maybe not enough to look at, but even if you throw out the idea of a splash park out there possibly in that park, if you wanted to, as an alternative to just a play structure. Might get more use, I don't know, but the play structure obviously would be 12 months out of the year. I don't know how much that gets used, maybe when it's
I don't think we need
95
a
degrees.
splash pad out there.
Excuse me?
I don't think we need a splash pad out there.
That was
That's
just a
just
thought that we
my-
threw out. So,
Well, and I think part of this came up twofold because of the new playground that's out at the main park, and we had talked about it, it was kind of divided up into age groups, and it's not anymore. So now you have people complaining that they want some kind of a play structure for smaller kids.
The littles.
And then you've got the people out in that area of town that want something
Some-
Period.
for something. You know what I mean? Yeah, they want something.
Yeah.
And so if you go through what you've got here, and let's just say we've got the pavilions, and that would be a this year. We have the pool, and that would be a this year, right? Am I doing this right? And then you're saying that the next one possibly could either be the offices or the playground equipment. Am I getting that right? And then the last one would be the pool, the shed, the.
The shed, yeah, that's
Right,
enough.
right.
That remodel, that's the one I'm thinking you could push out.
Well, if you're already experiencing the fact of costs going up for steel.
Yep.
And stuff on your pavilions, and I'm just saying, I don't know what we can get for 250,000. I would hope we'd get some kind of viable, good structure out there. I kind of agree with Betty, I don't think I understand the splash pad, but we've already got one in town.
Gotcha.
And so I think people want playground equipment so they can take their kids and their grandkids, and, I mean, if you follow it even halfway on Facebook, it's like unbelievable. So, and it came up again today. So, I don't know, I would like to see us do playground equipment. I think that's what there's somewhat of a demand for, and, I'm not into finance, I don't know. I just think if we put it off too far, we're not gonna get hardly anything if steel continues, if the costs continue the way it's going. So I don't know, that's my 2 cents for what it's worth.
And I sent Wayne some pictures because there's some structures over in the Union in that triple park. They have 3 play areas over by the baseball fields out there past, yeah. And anyway, but there's nothing at the Main Street Park that fits the little kids, And so when you said to me that you would have to get an idea on price for a small play structure for the main park, did you ever come up with a figure? I mean, what is the?
Yes.
Sorry we couldn't show you on here, but he did.
That's okay.
We'll pass it around. Want me to pass it around?
Yeah. So there's 4 options here. And I can email these out to you. They vary between
35.
35 and 40 something
Almost
thousand.
50.
Okay.
Do I remember correctly that at one time we were talking about a natural playground at Phoenix Park?
That was, that's, I guess, before I got here, that was that's the idea, because it's more of a,
Woodsy.
kind of fit the theme out there.
More
Yes.
environmental.
Yeah. Is that still the thought process?
I think so, yeah.
What does that mean?
I mean, it would be like more like the playground equipment might be like more natural colors and be like tree themed or,
Oh. But not made out of-
animal themed and
Okay,
stuff like
yeah,
that.
Okay.
I think that fits with the
I think
park.
it does too. And it was on that, gonna be on that lower level.
Lower, after you went down the hill past the tennis courts, down there where the bridges are in that flat area down there.
That's where the playground was going to be? I was going to ask you, I had no idea where that was planned.
Yeah.
And so you'll see the options are coming around for the playground. So that, the price on the bottom in big red, my handwriting there, would be the price for freight, the actual equipment, install the equipment, and the poured-in-place rubber. What that does not include would be site prep, rock, the concrete curbing to keep the rock in place, and drainage. That would all be on the city to install, like we did with Main Park Playground.
Okay.
Is there room between the new playground and High Street to install this without the fencing that was mentioned
Well,
earlier?
that's a good question. So this,
Thank you.
you guys caught me off guard with this, because We just cleaned up the whole site, you know, graded it, got everything. We had to put in drains, you know, to get the water off that rubberized surface, and that's worked real well. We put in a French drain, and then we drilled into the concrete curbing that keeps all the rock in place. Drilled in pilot holes in there, and that allows the water to seep out and not sit on there and just hold, because that concrete curbing was kind of acting like a bowl, and it was holding the water there. So now all the water runs out. But we just graded everything and was getting ready to, well, I'm actually taking it to council on Monday. We went out to bid for concrete work, and we got sidewalks going in that will run to that new playground. And so the sidewalks will connect over at Circle Drive at the corner of the old pool house where that new concrete going down the hill, the south hill. Sidewalk will run and connect there, run in front of the old pool house, which will be our offices someday. And then cross the parking lot there, kind of where you go back to the auditorium. Cross there, and then jump over into Main Park and lead down to the playground. And then there'll be a concrete path or a couple concrete paths coming off the existing path. So if you parked in the parking lot on Second Street, High Street, if you parked your car there, you'd walk up the existing path, but then there would be some smaller paths coming off that concrete path going to the playground. So you don't have to walk through mud and or the grass or whatever. So, to answer your question, I don't know where it would go or what we're gonna do with the sidewalks and all that, so I need to figure that out.
You know, because I would think we'll get the same feedback from people that we got with the pool, to where if they go with multiple children at different age levels, having it close enough where they can watch both sets of play equipment.
Well, and the other possibility is, you know, because we're getting such a influx of complaints about a structure for the littles, you know, maybe we start with that out at Phoenix Park. And that way we have something to say to them, okay, we got started at Phoenix Park, we got the littles out there. But I guess that's no good either, because
I think those people would be upset, you know, because
Yeah.
my first thought would be is like, well, they budgeted 250, but they only gave us 50,000. When are we gonna get the other 200,000?
Of course.
And then I think you also, cost-wise, I don't know if
Yeah.
that's the best use of.
Well, and as well, in close proximity to the main park is the All Abilities Park.
That's what I was gonna ask that question. That, I think, was the mindset from what I was told even before Wayne started with us, was that was the All Abilities Park was where you took the little guys then.
And that's what
And that was the reason why what they built, the 250,000 or 225, now we're at, you know, doing the concrete work for 25,000, but total 250, of what's out there by Main Park Playground that's the reason why that was built like that. Now, I know, I'll go down the path of saying, I get off of Facebook when it talks about park facilities because it just drives me insane. Because there's not enough money in the world to fund what
Right.
everybody
Well,
wants.
that was evident with the pool.
So my thing is, I don't, you know, and I will tell you that what you've got passed around, it's got to come out of somewhere, and it's not identified, it's going to be taken out of some other project if you want to go ahead and do that, so. And like you said, you're not going to get what you might have, I mean, I think the idea is out there at least at Phoenix, was that you were going to get something very similar to what you have at Main Park, what was just built,
Right,
Okay.
right.
okay? So just so
Yeah.
you know, that's the expectation.
The other thing at Phoenix, I think you're gonna get a lot of people walking to that park. It's gonna, you're gonna walk from the neighborhood. You may walk a mile to get there. So the little kids are, you either push a stroller, but you'll get the mid-sized kids that walk out there quite a bit.
Oh, absolutely.
Just to throw a scenario out here, this is the first time I've seen these pictures. $40,000 is a lot of money for that type of structure.
Right, the way I look at it, it's got 2 slides.
Right.
That's not much bigger than a
Oh,
backyard
maybe 3,
playground.
because there's 2
No,
and
exactly.
then 1.
I guess,
It's because
you know, just to
OSHA.
pull everything together here, we're looking at Phoenix Park Playground, 250,000. Include something for the little people out there
Exactly.
in that. The main park We use the All Abilities Park for that. We don't have to build an extra one next to it. We have the money to do, again, take into consideration when we do the Phoenix Center Park playground, that we have something for the littles, whether this is added on the side or it's made for younger kids there, whatever.
Just a
Do it right.
section, I mean,
Right.
Is
even if
there
all they're
room
doing
there?
is throwing up rocks.
That way you've got something for the little kids on both sides of town.
Right.
I agree, and there
Absolutely,
should be.
Absolutely.
But, and we're already, the possibility is, all right, so the whole structure was scheduled for 2026. Now we're hoping to move that up to do the entire structure, if I've got this right, at 2025 or 2024.
Okay,
Oh,
2022.
2022?
Yeah, if you
Oh my
wanted
God.
to, if you look at the parks maintenance shed building remodel, that was scheduled in 2022.
Well,
And
then.
then
I
we can
think
bump that back.
Well, then I think we just answered the question.
Is there-
We moved it up 4 years.
I want to complicate things one bit though.
All right.
'Cause I've asked, after all this
Oh,
discussion,
yeah.
I've asked Aaron this question too.
Okay.
When we went to capital improvement sales tax meetings and everything else, the pool was the number one thing. The renovations at Ronsick Field were second. So I've asked Aaron, is there any way we
yeah,
can get that done? We mentioned it a while ago about Little League, if we had turf, you don't have rainouts. Washington High, I spoke to Bill Deckelman today, yeah, everything's been fine, but those rainouts in March and April are tough there. So, there's other things, we're just adding on that we can move and, like I said, it had to be budgeted out somewhere. But we also, at Ronsick, we need the new netting and it needs to be expanded because we have a playground right next to it, we know that. So, again,
So when was Runzig scheduled for?
that's scheduled for
24.
2024.
and the playground scheduled for 26, potentially moving the playground to 22.
Move that back to 23.
Well, yeah, I mean, what are the options, as far as how the money comes in, and we look at that closely.
Yeah.
Just,
I want to caution you, what we have is, you've got, and this is why I left the discussion, I think the chamber would keel over if you asked them to move the 375 for the main stage roof.
Yeah, you
I say
can.
that in jest because the public, or the paper's not here.
No. We were out there the other night for that concert, and it was very well done, but they need that roof.
Right.
They just do.
And we've started for that, I
Yeah,
think, this is where we're looking at bumping that one up, wasn't
See,
it?
I thought that was gonna, no, I thought that roof was supposed to start
yeah.
this year.
We bumped that up to 22. This-
Yeah, like it's supposed to start this year and
We
hopes
started the
that it would be
RFQ
done.
process for
Right.
Due next Friday.
design, they're due next Friday for
Right,
design
right.
engineers coming.
And that way it'd be done in 2022. which-
That's what
a
we're
good-
shooting for,
that's
right?
good.
So, I mean, there's that project. I think you could, the one thing I think that what you could look at is if the renovation, you could do the administrative offices and sections. I don't know what all, Wayne, you might want to tell them what all, was that 389?
Yeah, 389, that's basically, you all have been in that building, and so if you want to put offices in there, it's going to take a lot of work. Doesn't have air conditioning, and that's moving, trying to close, you got stairwells going down both sides of the front desk there, so probably closing off one of those and still keeping one of those so we can get down to the basement. But closing off one of those, new hot water heater, you name it. And then actually offices, and then we'd like to lower, because I never really noticed this until I started looking at it closer. All the windows are really high in that building.
Hugely.
So we'd like to lower a few of the windows, like ideally, we'd want to have like maybe that would be northwest corner of the building, might be Robin's office. If we lowered that window, she could look out and see what day camp was doing and if anyone was misbehaving. And then, maybe my office overlooks the pool. If I could see out the window, from my desk, that would be nice. But at least I would have a window because I don't have a window right now.
Yeah.
But things like that.
It's your trial period.
You keep them high like that, you can change in your office.
Well, isn't that also a concrete floor throughout?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so, just getting all the infrastructure in there. We had, Cochrane came up with preliminary rough estimate for the budget, and that's where we came up with this. I was looking at that the other day, recently, and I don't know, I mean, I guess we could find some stuff to cut out of there. If we
You-
try to do it in stages, maybe that might work.
Let me tell you the other thing that you've got in 22 is the auditorium improvements, which was going to be the insulation of the roof, as well as an HVAC system, and whether or not we can get both of those done for that price is going to be difficult. But that was part of what was, that's in 22 as well. So. Good news, sales tax is doing well, but,
Everybody's out shopping.
And Darren, when we talked about that, you know, like something in the pavilion or in the auditorium, we want to get it done. We want to get it
Yeah.
insulated in air conditioning so we can rent it, but we're not using it hardly at all. I mean, other than what?
Just winter,
Yeah, winter
stuff in the wintertime.
So, yeah. You know, again, I'm just an advocate for the baseball field because it can be done, it's used. Parks don't have to drag the field anymore. There's less, you know, that kind of stuff there. But then we also talk about, you know, that there's just those
But it-
projects that are, you know, that just physically need to be done first, and then what benefits the city and, you know, Parks Health.
You know, to play devil's advocate, you know, a baseball diamond is also a, 7-month used location.
Right.
the other thing that I will tell you that we may have to juggle around a little bit, just so you know, so everybody wants their projects done, you know, tomorrow, is the riverfront, the sand plant parking lot project. And we've got a lot of discussion about some leasing property down there in the riverfront and the Waterworks building. And so that's still a commitment that the city would go ahead and do for down there, to go ahead and pave that. So that's another 200, I think that's 250.
250.
So there's another $250,000.
The parks maintenance renovation, is that, I mean, what exactly are you going to do to that?
Well, that was, from what I understand, because that was before my time, but expanding it and like, we need a wash bay and moving things around, or the asphalt up there is really bad. And just allowing, possibly some covered areas where we could hang salt spreaders and different things like that, park equipment under it, because a lot of our equipment sits outside now. We get a lot of it in, but a lot of it still sits outside too, so we'd like to get some of that, more of that under cover. We've been doing some small improvements inside to the offices and things like that in preparation for the bigger project coming up.
Is
But-
there a cost savings potential by spending that money, or?
Well, your
I don't know, I'd
equipment's
have to
gonna
look at
last
it a little
I know
closer
that.
here.
I understand that, but that,
Well, and they were also, one of the reasons we wanted to push for that was because at times, there'd been some damage done to stuff that was just sitting out, and we wanted to get it.
Yeah.
So that would, you know what I mean? That was the big reason to get it done, was so you could
Or the bucket.
lock things up,
Out there,
and it
outside.
wouldn't get damaged. But
They're in the home, you get them in the home ec building? Okay.
yeah, the reason I'm asking is it important to keep it where it is, in your mind, or?
It's important not to delete it at all, you know, get rid of it totally. It could be pushed back a year or two, I think. I'd hate it to push it all the way back to 26, but I think it could be pushed back some, yeah. I mean, it does make sense to, you know, get the parks offices out there, you know, especially if we do the auditorium renovation. We'll be having rentals there, you know, there's possibility that we could have more activity there, which oftentimes leads to more phone calls and issues, rental issues, things like that, be a lot closer to deal with. Obviously, the pool's gonna be there, or is there. Day camp operates out of there, park shop's right down the street. It just makes sense, fairgrounds are right there. Makes sense for everything to be there. You know, the public has been clamoring for this playground for a while.
I think that's our best PR answer, too. You know, that's going to make more people happy, I think.
What's that?
The playground out at Phoenix.
Bumping that up to
Yeah,
next
bump-
year.
I have to agree. I mean, you got, And we were looking at spending millions of dollars out the Payne Park. Not that it doesn't need to be spent, but that whole south side of the city is not getting anything for 4 years. That's kind of the
Absolutely.
trade-off, right? I mean, that's,
Yeah,
I would think so also, because that part of Washington is growing, and it's young people.
Yeah.
right,
That are
with
coming in,
children,
they're little
absolutely, absolutely.
I think it's,
Bye, Bob.
And you could also advocate for the fact that steel's not gonna get any, it can't go much higher. I mean, you would hope that it's gonna, you
Yeah.
know,
Oh,
you wouldn't wanna bet
I would
against it,
say-
but, you know, we're in the worst possible time right now. I mean,
Yeah, we are in the worst time right
you
now.
know,
Absolutely.
again, you gonna bet that it's gonna go down in 5 years? You know, I don't know about that, but.
that's just it's the instability right now that does. The contractor's not gonna bid for something he's not gonna buy for a month from now. He doesn't know if it's gonna be higher or lower. Maybe, it may be lower a month from now, but he's building that risk into his bids, whether it's there or not, so.
Right.
Do we need a motion or something to move it, or what's the deal?
I think what we'd like is if the board would go ahead and make a vote, at least on the, to move the Phoenix Center playground up to 2022.
Absolutely.
And we would push back the parks maintenance and shed building remodel back to one of the later years.
would you like a motion and a vote for,
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
okay?
Okay.
We have a motion and a second, motion by Kevin, second by Gavin, to switch those two items that Darren just talked about. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
We do have a quorum still, don't we?
Yes, because we're wondering the same thing.
I was yeah, because Bob just walked out.
Well, he has that meeting, remember, we rearranged?
Right.
Oh,
I
that's
think you got
right.
5, I think
Yeah,
you're
we got
Okay.
5.
Okay, good, otherwise I'll run back and get him, but he's
Yeah,
got
we'll
that
go
meeting
after.
at 7.
Yeah,
We're fine. I think
Okay.
it's just, I
Okay.
don't know that you're gonna, I mean, you're just making a recommendation.
Right.
Right,
All
To
we're
the
doing.
council, to
Right.
go ahead and do it. It's
Right.
up to them to go ahead and.
Okay.
they're the final say.
The real thing will be when the budget gets done
Right.
later this summer, that
Okay.
it'll be reflected in the capital improvement sales
Right.
tax, this last
Right.
sheet.
Yeah,
Right,
all right, okay. That covers everything.
yes.
Our next meeting is June 9th. May I have a motion for adjournment?
Can I ask one?
Yes, you
Yeah.
may.
Does the Parks Department, are we going to be doing the Greenway thing? Is that us, or is that the city,
Bush Creek?
Yes, thank you.
Bush Creek is the project, it'll be bid out, and then once the construction's completed, the portions of it that need to be maintained around the thing, that'll be the parks. It'll be an
Oh.
asset of the parks,
Okay, okay,
just like any other trail.
okay.
and then I just have one real quick question. So, I know that the scooters, they keep coming up and stuff like that, but, and are they, the new restrictions that I just read? Could you just explain, because there have been a lot of scooters on the trail, good, bad, or whatever, a lot of them. And when you brought up the line down it, that was one of the issues, was some people riding, or really, truly kids riding the scooters on the trail and not, so is that kind of being addressed, or?
So if you, I don't know if you got a chance to see the article in the paper, but.
No, I haven't.
We've also posted it on Facebook, but the changes that were being made were to address some of those issues.
Okay.
For starters, I think there's a photo ID would be required regardless of whether or not, if mom puts the debit card in, the riders still have to go ahead and have some type of photo ID. So the idea was targeted towards really 16 and older.
Yes.
Is it possible that a 14-year-old's going to have a photo ID? Sure, but the idea was targeted towards 16 and older and really do away with those less than that age from riding those. The problem, and we figured that, they also figured that that would also eliminate the sidewalk riding. They're going to do a little bit more of a campaign, stickers on there, bigger ones, to say, do not ride on sidewalks. I think another one of the vendors down in St. Louis does something similar to that. It's just much more prominent on the scooter itself. But the idea was that if you took away from the younger kids from riding the scooters, the parents probably feel more comfortable with their kid riding it on the sidewalk because they don't want them to ride them in the street. But in reality, the idea is we want them in the street. We don't want them on the sidewalk. So that was part of the idea. They were gonna go ahead and make that change. And Lime can go ahead and make that change. As far as the trail goes, they reduced the speed limit. I think the maximum that could go before was 15 miles per hour, and now it's gonna be reduced down to 10.
Okay.
When it's on the trail. So they can make that change. And then they can also, one other change as far as the trail goes, is that to prevent people from just riding it down there and then just
And just leaving it.
leaving it.
Right.
Was that they will be billed until it gets back. So even if the thing dies, you can still ride it with the good old-fashioned
Right.
Fred Flintstone friction and get yourself back to, where you need
Right.
to get it off the trail. And then they can go ahead and still do that because their card's still gonna be on there. And even if they just leave it on there, they're gonna get billed if they just drop it.
Okay.
So there's gonna be that motivation for them to go ahead and do that. As far as the speed goes, I think that, the big thing was, we talked about it and, I know not everybody loves listening or reading traffic committee minutes, but, one of the things that they discussed was the idea of that, and you guys know this, we don't have I think, people that ride their bikes, for example, do the high speed with traffic or whatever, they're typically not down on the trail because it's much more of the recreational riding their bike on the trail. I think the idea was that the scooters were still in that same speed, and that was the idea, so that wouldn't be such a problem with the traffic that's already down there. Now they're gonna reduce it down to 10. They feel that that'll also, some kids may not feel like getting on there, at 16 and flying
dangerous
as fast
enough.
as they can at 15 miles per hour, so.
Okay.
There was one other change that, and I think the boundaries, was
where
was
they
gonna
can
be
go.
limited. It was gonna be everything north of 100. You could not get, there was a complaint of council that there was one at Schnucks parking lot or something like that. They did not want it to be able to be, go across Highway 100 by any means. They're not, that's not what they're meant for. So there was a new map that kind of came up with the boundaries of where they could go. I think they just wanted to test them the first couple weeks, see where people were riding them. Apparently, I think that the most that's available, from what I understand from the Lime representative that was here, even though they talked about having 60 of them out there, there's only about 30 of them that are ever available because the other 30 are worn out, or they have to be charged because they're being ridden that much. Now, if you reduce that with the photo ID, ridership may fall off now because you're not gonna have the 10, 12-year-olds, 14-year-olds probably riding it as much. The idea
Right,
is
and I
probably
just
it
know
wouldn't.
we were out, like I said, we went to the concert out at the park, and the park should be, thank you for whatever you did out there for the East Central Band. It was very, very nice, but they're on that roadway up there, there were like 3 kids on those going back
Yeah,
and forth, and
right.
older people, and it was kind of like, I didn't even think those scooters were supposed to be in that area.
They were, it's still included for the park
It
system.
is it?
Yes.
Up there by
That
the.
boundary area was the park system, and if you have to, if the city wants to change that and remove that at a later date, just like they've done for some private parking lots downtown, they can.
Right, okay. Well, I just didn't know, so that's why I asked.
No, but it is, just so you know, that is included in that area that they
Okay.
made that recommended change.
Can they go east of 47?
They can, because they wanted them to be able to go ahead and hit other parks on the other side, but they just, 100 seemed to be the, they
Okay.
don't want to go and past that. But if you can take it, yes, you can go up to cross 47 and get on the east side of
Okay.
47 if you want. There's a
Any
new map
other
out, I think,
questions?
somewhere, so.
Okay.
I have one, I just remembered that somebody brought up to me, a couple people, like, I will call it the no-mow areas in the park system. What determines what areas we do not mow and let grow? And they were particularly talking about the area on the other side of Teeman from, where that creek runs along there. And there's other areas where
Oh, I think that's.
we're letting
City
we're letting the
down
area
there.
grow and not
You
cutting.
know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
what,
we
what,
went through when I started and determined areas that we thought we could get by without mowing, just to reduce our time in mowing so we could
I understand
concentrate on
that,
other
yeah.
things. That was one of the areas. I know I saw a couple of complaints last year on Facebook about it, So, I mean, we can revisit it, but
I'm not asking, I think because when I
It is
looked,
on my
when I looked at
radar.
that area, it almost have to be hand cut.
yeah, that's the
Yeah.
thing. Like,
Yeah,
I think they're
and-
really, from what I remember on Facebook last year, they were really concerned about like what was in like the stuff growing in the creek, like the brush and the, honeysuckle or whatever it may be growing in the creek. So that's going to require us to get down in the creek with either handsaw or chainsaw or one of those weed eater things with the blade on it or whatever
Yeah.
it may be. And I just, with all the other things we're behind on these days, I don't,
Well, I guess the answer is, we only have so many hours that we can cut, and so we have to
people don't like that answer though.
I know they don't.
We have a large amount of acreage for our park system for a town our size, period.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my
really
gosh,
do.
yes, no
And it's,
question
and
about
it's,
that.
that's the thing, and it's like, how much of it are you gonna leave, how
Well,
much are
that-
you gonna
and-
treat like a
well,
cemetery, and how much are you gonna leave open?
To me, you cut the usable area,
That's what I,
know,
that's what
and
we.
that is not what I would call something that you would use, that
That's a
area.
nice,
Or even the slope going down the hill from, what is it, Fair Street down to, Teeman, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, who walks on that?
that is
You know,
correct.
and there are ecological and environmental advantages to not cutting stuff.
absolutely.
That's true too, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
okay. Good answers. Now, a motion to adjourn?
I think I already did.
We did
Is
that.
done?
Just vote.
I gotta go pick up my kid.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Okay, so what was the deal about